Hello, everyone. This is Priscilla with Scylla Travel, helping you live the dream through travel. So sorry for my tardiness. I was having technical issues. And of course, when you go on live, those things happen. They tend to happen. So, how is everyone tonight? Um, what are you drinking? I see. Hello, Carolyn. Hey, Kristen from Kristen from I don't see where Kristen's from, but Carolyn says she's from Maryland. Hello, Sandra from Atlanta. Nice to see you. Siobhan, how are you? Taryn, let's see. Not happy to see you, Taryn. Okay. So I just want to apologize again because I had technical issues and I just could not share. I had to restart several times. Hello, Geraldine from Texas. How are you? Taryn, you're also from Texas. Okay. And Joyce from Detroit. Nice to see you. Let's see who else is here. We've got Willa. She's also from Texas. So we got a lot of Texas people here. Glad to see you, Texas folks here. So, what are y'all drinking? What are y'all drinking? I am drinking cranberry juice. It's cran mango in this cup here. So, what are y'all drinking? Let me know in the comments. How's everybody doing? All right. So, we're here to talk about discovering Black culture in Paris. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll get to them. Let's see. Joyce. Hello, Joyce. Joyce said she's having water. Yeah, I should have had water, but I gave in and got the cranberry juice. It's one of my favorite things. So one of my favorite beverages. So let's see, we're here to talk about discovering Black culture in Paris. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll get to them. What's going to happen next is I'm going to go over, we're going to talk about Paris and Black culture and history, because it's a journey through history and heritage. And these days and these times, I think it's important that we sort of get familiar or bone up on our history, especially as Americans and Black Americans or African Americans, whatever you want to refer to yourself from as. Hello from Philadelphia. How you doing, Linda Mitchell? Nice to see you. Okay, so I'm going to we're going to go through just some things, it's really interesting, especially the time that we're living in. And at the end, I'm going to talk about a trip. So Paris, because everybody wants to go to Paris. Everyone wants to go to Paris. Okay, so that's just something that all Americans seem to want to go to, a place that all Americans seem to want to go to. And I'm just going to go through and I'm going to talk about why people want to go to Paris and why you should go to Paris. So I'm Priscilla with Scylla Travel, helping you live the dream through travel. And what I do is I provide premium travel planning services and advisory services for empty nesters in the second act of their life. So it's time to up level your vacation. And that's just something that the pandemic has made me realize, stop waiting on everyone else and just do it, because you just don't know how much time you actually have. And then you want to do it while you're still able to get around. So many of you are already, I have a couple of you who are my clients already, who are already in my list or on my list or follow me already. So I am retiring from federal service this year, 2024, this summer, after 28 years. So I am looking forward to it and looking forward to traveling while I still have knees and I still have the energy to go. So why Paris? Well, Paris is home to, a really significant Black community. and it spans centuries. It's not recent, it's centuries. We tend to think of things in terms of recent history, but in reality, because maybe our education system here in the U.S. is a little lacking a little bit, so it's up to us to educate ourselves and educate our kids, so that they want to travel more and know more. You know what I mean? So um, it spans centuries. So the African presence, Africans were brought to Paris, the city, as early as the 17th century. And we know that's because of the slave trade, right? So France was the second largest colonizing nation or European nation behind Britain. Britain was the largest. So they were all competing with each other. So during the slave trade, that's when Africans first were brought to Paris, early as the 17th century, the 1600s, right? Now, slavery in the French kingdom was abolished 2 times. Now, that's weird, isn't it? You can't, someone, Geraldine, are you saying you can't see the screen? Let me know. Is anybody not seeing my slides? Let me know in the chat. Can you see my slides? Let me know. It could be the internet. It's pretty slow. Can you let me know? Geraldine saying she can't see the slides, so I'm going to check on my second device here to see if I can see them. Anybody else not seeing the screen? Okay, Kristen's saying she's seeing it, so maybe there's like a delay, Geraldine, because the internet's been pretty iffy for the past several, I don't know, couple of weeks or so. Okay, all right, so Siobhan's saying she can see it on YouTube because I am on YouTube, so you may want to go over there if you can't see them in here. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. So the African presence, like I was saying, in France, the Kingdom of France, that's when they had the kings and queens. They abolished slavery twice. Once in 1794 and the second time in 1848. Now I'm talking about the kingdom. That's when they had the kings and the queens. And so they did that the first time because there were some slave uprisings in the colonies in the Caribbean. So they abolished it, and then another king came and reinstated it. And I believe Napoleon Bonaparte reestablished it as well. So I'd have to go look that up. I don't remember all the dates, but when in 1794, when the French Republic was established, and that's when Napoleon was sent to this island and exiled, right? Because he made himself an emperor. That's when they abolished slavery in the colonies. So they abolished slavery in 1848 in France itself, France proper, but it still went on in the colonies. So we know that was all about economics. So many of the European countries abolished slavery in Europe, but they didn't do so in the colonies. Now, remember, the United States was a colony. The United States was before it was the United States, it was a collection of colonies. Remember the 13 original colonies from school? And some of our states, Louisiana was French. We bought that from the French. I believe that was during Napoleon's time. Yep, the Louisiana Purchase. Florida was originally a Spanish colony. The 13 original colonies on the East Coast were some were Dutch, and then the English took over. The British had colonies in Canada before it was Canada. So all of these, the United States, the Caribbean, were all colonies. Okay, so the United States colonists, they rebelled against England, and that's when the United States was established as a sovereign nation. Now, the war went on for several years. It didn't just end overnight. So another period of time when Africans migrated to Paris were in modern times, right? So African people moved to Paris during modern times from their countries. Because of economic reasons. Now we know that colonization continued on after slavery, and then in the mid 19th century, the 1900s, 1950s, I believe Ghana was the first African nation to gain its independence, 1957 or 1958. Then the others started to follow like dominoes. But during that time, the countries struggled to get their feet under them economically. So many people went to the colonies. They went to the French colonies. People from the French colonies went to France because at that time, then France let them come there to work. And so many people migrated there for economic reasons, right? So why else do people migrate anywhere? For economic or reasons or war or some benefit. So that's why they went. There were also some Afro-Caribbean people who migrated to France. So we had some French-speaking colonies like Guadeloupe, Haiti, which was Saint Domingue before. Now Saint Domingue was the first nation in the Caribbean to gain its independence, the first Black colony to gain its independence from France. So, and that was in the 1700s. So there were other French-speaking Caribbean countries. Guadeloupe is one. Let's see, St. Martin, there's a French side and there is an English side. Haiti, and then there are a few others, right? So we also have an African Caribbean presence in Paris now. So Paris is pretty multicultural. If you were to visit there, you would not recognize it. It's nothing like you would imagine on TV, you know, all the things that we would see on TV. France itself in general, it's pretty multicultural. So it became the cultural hub for Black people coming from the Caribbean, because they've been residing there since the 18th century. And then I'm going to be talking about a couple people who actually became quite famous in France, in Paris specifically. So here's Saint George Chevalier. He lived from 1745 to 1799. They made a movie about him. He was called the Black Mozart. So he was the son of a French nobleman and an enslaved Senegalese woman. So Senegal was one of the colonies on the coast of Africa. Of course, it wasn't, they had territories. It wasn't the countries the way they're split up right now. So there was actually a movie called Chevalier that came out. And if you're interested, I can put the links to that movie, Chevalier. It's on Prime Video. And you can watch it. He was a composer, and he actually, he was a very talented person. So he was a composer, a violinist, and a conductor of the opera. And he was a swordsman. Now, his father brought him to Paris from Guadeloupe and sent him to school. And if you do decide to check out that movie, then I think it's a pretty good movie. You know, of course they dramatized it a lot. They put a lot of drama in it and stuff, you know, but he actually was in charge of the opera when Marie Antoinette was queen. So he actually trained her. He wrote many, many compositions. Of course, when the French Revolution happened, many of the records were burned. And for other reasons, his works were also hidden. It's only now recently that people are starting to find and discover some of his works that he wrote. He was a composer. So when I was in school growing up, my mom had us take piano lessons. So we used to play classical music. So he was actually he was a few years older than Mozart, Ludwig van Mozart. They called him the Black Mozart, but he was actually a few years older than Mozart, and Mozart actually went to meet him. So they had sort of a rivalry there, him and Mozart. He was the first Black professional orchestra leader in France. Um, and he was also a colonel in the French Legion during the French Revolution. So he was the leader of the first all Black regiment in Europe. So this was between the time of the fall of the French Empire and the French Kingdom and during the French Revolution. Now, a lot of things happened during that time. But this guy, I mean, he was really talented. He was also a ladies' man. He never married, but he was quite an accomplished composer, and he was quite competitive. Now, here is General Thomas Alexandre Dumas. Now, he was born in 1762 and died in 1806. Now, he was born on the island of Saint Domingue, right? Dominique or Saint Domingue, which is modern day Haiti. Now, he was also the son of a noble person, a nobleman, and an enslaved woman. So he was sent to Paris as well. So Geraldine says she saw Chevalier. Yes, it was an excellent movie. It really was. He actually became quite a swordsman himself. He was a very famous general, and you would never realize that this famous general was a Black person, a Black man. And during the French Revolutionary War, he was one of the most respected commanders of the French army during the Revolution. And he actually knew Napoleon Bonaparte. And of course, Napoleon, after they deposed the king and queen, and Napoleon became the ruler, and then he decided to make himself the emperor, of course, Mr. or General Thomas Alexandre Dumas was disposable, but he was quite the swordsman too. He and Mr. Chevalier, Joseph Bologna, the Chevalier, they actually served in the same unit. But this guy was one of the most respected commanders of the French army. And guess who he fathered? Alexandre Dumas, the writer, one of the greatest French writers of all times. He wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. How many of you remember that from school? And how many times have you seen The Three Musketeers? I've seen The Three Musketeers since I was a kid, and it's been made over so many times. But who would have known that it was a Black guy? He's of mixed race ancestry, but look at his hair. He's a Black man. He wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, if you remember the story at all. So, yep. Thanks, Doc. So he wrote the story of The Count of Monte Cristo about his father, the general, because the father was thrown in prison by Napoleon at one time. Hello, Lavette from Texas. I have a lot of Texas people here today. Good to see you. So his dad was thrown into prison, and that story was inspired by the experiences of his father, General Alexandre Dumas. He also wrote, like I said, The Three Musketeers, and he also helped break down racial barriers in French society. So after they deposed the king and queen, remember, Aunt Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake, and they beheaded her. So, and then they took over. Now it's been a republic ever since. Now, here's some other famous people. Angelique Kidjo. And this lady, I would love to be able to see her in concert one day. This lady here is a really, really talented artist. She is from Benin. She's a Beninese French artist, singer, songwriter, actress, and activist, born in 1960. She studied at the CIM, a jazz school in Paris, because of things that were going on in her country at the time. She in the 80s went to live in Paris and then went to school. And she was supposed to be an attorney, but she actually studied music. And she is really one of the most talented singers because of her fusion of music, different styles, jazz, and some of her native styles. She is quite famous, and she's known all over the world. Angelique Kidjo. So she actually was the recipient of the Polar Music Prize in 2023. That's considered to be the most prestigious music prize in the entire world. So that's Angelique Kidjo. So she's just another example of Black people living in France and contributing to the culture and the society. Now, here we go to the African American. Here we go to the African American Chronicles. Now, some of you may know, but others of you may not be familiar about some of our history as an American in France, an African American. An African American. An African American in France. So there's some unique history there regarding us. So James Hemings, and I was just talking to my husband about that this afternoon. He was born in 1765, died in 1801. He didn't live very long. He was a formerly enslaved chef. He was an American chef. He was, how many people can you guess who he was related to? James Hemings. Hemings is the hint. Can anybody guess who James Hemings may have been related to? So I'm going to give you a chance. Hemings. Thomas Jefferson is the other hint. Well, I'm going to tell you. So James Hemings was Sally Hemings' brother. So yep, that's right, Robert. Of course, my African American studies professor would know that answer. Nice to see you, Robert. So James Hemings, he was related. Yep. Sally. Yep. Joyce. Yep. Related to Sally Hemings. He was owned by Thomas Jefferson. Now, this is before the Revolution. Well, during the Revolution, before the United States became the United States. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, as well as James Madison, John Jay, and some of those other founding father dudes that we learned about back in elementary school. They went to France. They were ambassadors, or they had posts in France because they wanted to be recognized as independent nations. Now, Thomas Jefferson at the time this is before he became president, because it was before the United States was the United States. He was the ambassador, the American minister to France in the 1780s. Now, what he did was he took Sally Hemings with him. Remember the story about Sally? And the thing of it is when they went there with him, they were free because France had already abolished slavery during that time. The time that they were there, Sally was free, and so was James. So James was actually a chef. He was already a cook on the plantation, but when he went there, he made a deal with Thomas Jefferson because Thomas Jefferson wanted to have clout, and this man was so talented in his skill, he went to school. He sent him to culinary school. So he went to formal culinary school in France, right? And this guy actually worked for some of the royalty in France, and he studied with a famous caterer in France, right? I can't remember his name. Now, he went to formal culinary training, and guess what he introduced to U.S. cuisine? So he actually negotiated the terms of his freedom because he said, if I do this, when I come back to the United States, I want to be free. I'll come back. Because he could have just stayed, They didn't make him go back. He could have just stayed, and Sally could have too. They could have just stayed in France, and they would have been free. So something similar to happened during the Haitian Revolution, um, when the Haitian people, they rebelled against France, and then all of the French nobility, they left and came to the United States. This was like in the 1790s, I believe. So they went to Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania was a free state. So when they got there, they brought some of their slaves. Now, the slaves didn't want to go on their own. They made them go, right? They grabbed some and took them. And when they got there, they were not happy to find out that these slaves were free. And I know that this story is close to my heart because my dad was from Philadelphia, and he used to tell us about the abolitionists and the society, the abolition society. And he used to tell us about that we believe that our ancestors, our great grandfather, or came from Haiti during the revolution. So there were some families who came, and some changed their names from French last names to English names because they were afraid that they would be made to, because it was litigation and everything. Of course, they didn't win, the former plantation owners. So some of them started going to Louisiana because they wanted to preserve slavery. But yeah, so this fella here, he invented macaroni and cheese. That's one of our American staples. He brought it back, introduced it to United States cuisine. Creme brulee as well. That's one of my favorites. I love creme brulee. So also they suspect French fries. French fries. Get it? French fries. Yeah. So if you go to France, you some of the food, you'll find some of the same foods that we eat here in the restaurants: hamburgers, French fries, things like that. Of course, they have their other frou-frou food that's a bit different. But yeah, he introduced, thank you, Sandra, he introduced macaroni and cheese to the United States cuisine. So he came back, became free, and then it was pretty sad what happened with him, because once he came back to the U.S., of course, slavery was still going on here in the U.S., and then there was extreme supremacy and racism here in the United States. So he did not have the same celebrity status or the same level of reputation, and he was a big guy when he was in France. So when he came back, he wasn't. He died from alcoholism. He was an alcoholic and he got sick. So, and he died early. That was James Hemings. Now, here we go to some more African Americans. Now, these African Americans, some of you may not know about them. Robert may know. This is James Europe and the 369th Harlem Hellfighter Band from World War I. Now, how many of you knew that U.S. Black soldiers fought in World War I for Europe and for France? How many of you know that? They helped liberate France during the First World War from the Germans. So this band, actually, you see they're playing their jazz instruments. They're the ones who introduced jazz to France. This guy, James Europe, he was a famous band leader in the United States, in Harlem. And he joined the military, this 369th Regiment. These folks wanted to distinguish themselves, and they joined. They figured we would be considered equal if we served our country. Now, there are Black people who've been in every single war in the United States. Every single war, there have been African American people in those wars. So that's important that people know that. Even the Revolutionary War, they fought then too. So these folks went to World War I. They were mainly supply. They did supplies. They worked in the back, but the French needed help. So the U.S. government loaned these Black soldiers to France. And then when they did, they distinguished themselves so much. Ah, that's right, Robert. He was talking about the very first black combat pilot was Eugene Bullock, and he could only fight for France during World War One because the military was segregated. So black people weren't allowed to have guns. And the French were like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that to your citizens? You know what I mean? So, but the French used these soldiers and they distinguished themselves. And they were very fierce warriors. That's why they called them the Harlem Hellfighters. And this band, the Harlem Hellfighter Band, brought jazz to France. So jazz is pretty big in France because of this. Now, they brought black culture to France. So during World War One, many African Americans after the war decided to go back, because when they came back home after the war, there were a lot of uprisings against black people. Okay, so there were these race riots. So there was one in New York, because this group was from New York. There was a big one in New York. So many of these people, they didn't experience the same level of respect, and they were free to date who they wanted. And some of them went back to France. So we have a lot of musicians who went back to France after World War One. Hello, Gloria from Ohio. Glad to see you. So here goes some of the artists. We've got Sidney Bechet. He was from Louisiana. He was a famous clarinetist, and he was a jazz player. And he went from France to Britain, back to the US, and then in his elder years, he went back to France. But he was one of the very first. We have Louis Satchmo Armstrong. He was also a famous jazz music blues player. And we have Ada Bricktop Smith. These are just some examples of some black entertainers who moved to Paris, actually, because they had the freedom to pursue their craft. They could escape extreme racism. So that's why they went. Then we have the most famous of all, Miss Josephine Baker. Miss Josephine Baker went to France during, I think, the 1920s. So she was a black entertainer. She lived through the race wars of St. Louis, I believe. She lived through that. So she went to Paris and became an overnight success. She was a trailblazing entertainer. She also served as a double agent for the French resistance during World War II. Now, how many people knew that? Did anybody know that Josephine Baker was actually a resistance fighter during World War II for the French? She was a spy. She actually used to smuggle messages between the French, who were occupied by the Germans again. They used to smuggle messages to the Allied forces, Canada, United States forces, British forces, because she was a performer. They didn't think anything of her. They didn't think she was smart enough to do anything like that. But she actually became a citizen of France. She gave up her United States citizenship and she just never came back. Yeah, she did that too, Robert. She hid Jews also during the Holocaust in her chateau. She did. She hid some Jewish people at her chateau. So this lady, she was really, really brave. Could you imagine what could have happened to her had she been found out? She would have messages written in invisible ink of all things. Who would have thought that there was invisible ink invented back then? Invisible ink was written in her gowns and in her sheet music between the lines, and she would pass messages between the French resistance and the Allied forces. So that's Miss Josephine Baker. She died in 1975. She was also a civil rights activist. She refused to sing at segregated audiences in the United States. She just refused to do it. She would not do it. She was like, nope. If these audiences segregated, I'm just not going to do it. She refused to perform. She was famous in Europe, famous in France. And she was a celebrity, and she was a civil rights activist. Yes, she did, Robert. She did speak at the March on Washington. Got the chance to say it before I got a chance to say it. She sure did. She really did. So in 2021, she was symbolically interred at the French Pantheon. That's the Hall of Heroes in Paris. So they didn't, as she was actually buried in Monaco, on her friend, the Princess of Monaco. I believe that was Grace Kelly, as a matter of fact. At her friend's estate, her family didn't want to move her bones, but they symbolically interred her. She was recognized as a hero. She was a French hero. She was the first Black person to be recognized as a hero. And that's where all the heroes were buried. Now, we also can talk about the Harlem Renaissance, which also occurred during the 1920s and spanned to the 1930s. So we've got many African-American artists, such as writers, musicians. I talked a little bit about that already. Many performers, they sought artistic freedom and they wanted to escape racism and segregation. So James Baldwin is just one person. Langston Hughes spent some time there. There are many of them who went to Paris to pursue their craft. There were artists who went there because they would not be successful during those times in the United States. Would not be, galleries wouldn't show their work. They were not given the opportunity. So they went to France. They went to Paris. So just to say, Black Parisian. So these people Josephine Baker became a Black Parisian. We've had other Parisians from Africa, from the Caribbean, from the US. I believe Sidney Bechet actually moved back there before he died to Paris, and had a family in his old age. Who would think? So there are many significant contributions to Paris's culture, society, and its political movements. It's also culturally diverse, and it's helped shape the country's global and cultural face. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. So Robert saying, yep, he was also harassed for being gay, James Baldwin. Yeah, he was. So I remember reading his books when I was a kid. I do remember, because we used to have reading lists. And I mean, where we actually read books by authors. Now I don't even want to go into what they're doing these days. I don't even know what they're teaching the kids these days. I just can't imagine. So it's up to us to pass this knowledge on to our offspring. Make sure that they learn it. My parents taught me. So next is Live the Good Life, Soulful Epicurean Experience for France 2025. Many of you are going with me because I'm going this summer. And it was sold out in 2024. 2023 was the first sailing, and that one sold out so quickly. They did it in 2024. Now they're doing 2025. So we have from now until August of 2025. So the follow-on of this Soulful Epicurean Experience will be happening. I'm already booking for it. I will be announcing it this week when I nail down all of the pricing for the single supplement and the triple cabin. So what's included in this is a luxury river cruise. It's a 7-night river cruise in an elegant stateroom. It's on the Ama Christina. Now, river cruise ships are not like your ocean liners, totally different. So, river cruises take you through countries. Yes, river cruises take you through countries. The ocean liners, they take you to them. So, if you're the type of person that's into culture and who's into food and wine and performances and just experiencing a destination, then river cruising is for you. So there's also a 3-night cruise day. It'll be at the Arc de Triomphe Hotel or similar. This year it's moved to another hotel because of the Olympics. But 2025, it should be back at the Arc de Triomphe. I've actually stayed there before. I've actually sailed this cruise before, just not with the Black heritage emphasis on it. All fine dining is included on board, including the chef's table restaurant, which is a specialty restaurant where each person on the cruise has the opportunity to eat with the chef. And it's a 7-course meal. It's a gourmet meal. And each person, you don't pay anything extra for it. It's all included. All of the dining on board, 3 meals a day on the 7-day river cruise is included. Even your wines, your beers, the spirits. Now, the premium spirits, there's a cost for that. But wine, champagne, beers, things like that, all of that is included. There's no drink package. You don't have to pay for internet either. There's also a daily sip and sail cocktail hour where the cruise manager meets with everyone and we go over the next day's itinerary. There will also be some activities on the ship, as well as some jazz performances on board as well as on land. So like I mentioned before, the French had adopted jazz because African Americans brought it there. So to this day, they have a lot of jazz in the country of France. So it's really big there. So there are a variety of excursions for each day, like guided hikes, bike rides, and tasting tours. So I never took the bike tour or the hikes. I was fine doing the walks, but the guided tours. Everything is included. It's just a wonderful experience because you're being catered to, and you really get to hear about the history of all these people that I just talked about, just a few of them. There are so many more, and there are so many different experiences that we can have in France, celebrating Black heritage and history over there. There's also the Wi-Fi is complimentary. And then after the 7-night river cruise, because this time we're going to start in Lyon. No, not Lyon. Sorry about that. Start on the coast. The first tour will be in Marseille, and that's a Black heritage tour as well. Claude McKay actually lived in Marseille, and there'll be some Black heritage tours there. Visit to the African district there, and sailing from Arles up the Rhone River to Lyon, which is the gastronomy capital of France. Then from there, we disembark, get off the ship, and transfer from Lyon to Paris by high-speed rail. That's a pretty cool experience. The train is pretty cool. I wish we had those kinds of trains here. I really wish we had like high-speed rail here because it's so much more economical, and those trains go like 200 miles an hour. So people live farther out from Paris than, and they just commute way out into the countryside, as a matter of fact. Okay, so there's also a specially curated tour, a Josephine Baker excursion, and a Black history tour in the city of Paris. So there's a Black Paris tour, and there's also a Josephine Baker tour in the city of Paris. So those two cities have the main Black heritage tours, but throughout the entire river cruise, we still get the French culture and cuisine. The jazz is incorporated into it. There are many other places other than those two cities. Like there are some sites where the landing on Normandy during D-Day, as well as some other places farther down the Rhone where there was fighting during the World Wars. There's also a group called the Senegalese Riflemen who also distinguished themselves during the World War One. So there's a lot of this history, is going to be, we're going to learn about this on this cruise. So that's why it's such a great cruise. It's in addition to your regular French cuisine and culture, because there's a huge Roman footprint in France. And I was shocked to see Roman ruins in the middle of the towns. So those things are still included. All the tours are included. All the meals are included on the river cruise. Now, in the 3-night stay at Paris, it's going to be at the hotel. Breakfast is included, but then there's plenty of places for you to walk around and get food, because you're right. That hotel is right down the street from the Arc de Triomphe and the Champs-Élysées, where all the shopping and everything is. And in Paris, you can go just about anywhere by taking the train. So you can catch the train to go anywhere you want, because we'll be smack dab in the middle of Paris. One of the AMA Waterways, because this is an AMA Waterways river cruise, will be accompanying us as well on this trip. So you're never, even if you are going solo, you're never really going to be by yourself, because the cruise manager is going to be with everyone all throughout the cruise, as well as the 3 days in Paris. So what's not included are flights to France. So international air is not included in the cost. So you can book your air yourself, or I can book the air for you. Now, AMA Waterways gets a pretty good rate. And right now, if you were to make your deposit and book, you can actually take advantage of pre-published flights. And I believe it's like $1,800 or $2,200 for economy. No, I got that backwards. $1,800 for economy, premium economy, as a matter of fact. Business class, it's a little bit more. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's because I'd have to look at it. It's really reasonable. So because the rates are not published yet. Before the airlines publish those rates, you can get these pre-published negotiated rates through AMA Waterways. And then you can make a deposit on the air and roll it into your payments. So I do offer payment plans as well. Structured payments, what I call the structured payments, where I just set you up to make your own payments. Or you can, I have a payment financing plan called Uplift, where you can finance the trip, pay up to 24 months, and then you make payments with Uplift. So there are many payment options. You're free to make your credit card payment. You're free to do auto draft. I'm also going to be introducing ACH payments, where you could sign up for that and save on the fees, because the fees, there are a lot of fees now. There's no way to get around the fees these days with the interest rates the way that they are. So there are plenty of options. If you make your deposit now, you have like 14 months to make payments. So that's quite a bit of time to do that. Give you some breathing room. Things of a personal nature are not covered. That's not included. And any food that at the hotel that's not already stated, which is your breakfast, is not going to be included. So those are your exclusions, but everything else is included. This is a luxury experience. So we have the Soulful Epicurean Experience France 2025. It's 10 nights, 11 days, 7-night river cruise from Arles to Lyon, plus 3 nights in Paris. And it's going to be August 21st to August 31st in 2025. There's no additional Barcelona stay this time. And it's going to be $500 off per person until January 31st. If you make your deposit, you get $500 off per person. Prices start at $51.99 per person for this luxury river cruise experience. So how to book is, I'm going to put right now the VIP list is open. I am going to send a link. I'm going to put the link right now in the chat to sign up for the VIP list. And then once you sign up for the VIP list, then you can, you will get an invitation. You'll get an invitation from me to make your deposit. So by the end of this week, I'll have all of the pricing nailed down, and then you'll have the opportunity to make your deposit. The deposit is only $500 per person, and you would have up to 14 months to pay. And let me put a link to this VIP list, how to sign up for it right here. So that's how you sign up for it. And then you can also book a river cruise consult. Once you sign up for the VIP list, make sure that you book your river cruise consult, because this is, even though you can sign up and have auto draft and all of those things, this is still a personalized experience. So I really want you to get on the phone with me and figure out which accommodations, which room, which cabin is going to be best for you. Work out what your payments are going to be, because like I said, I'm going to offer different methods of payment. So that's sort of personal. It's not like you're automatic, sort of just go and just book in one and done. This is a luxury experience. So this is the kind of experience that I want to talk to you. And not one person who's booked this cruise has booked without having a conversation, because this is a luxury product. So I definitely understand. So that's why I'm saying you will book your river cruise consultation. And then once we go over everything and agree, then you can make your deposit. Now, let me take you to a video. I'm going to stop sharing my slides, and I'm going to share something else. I'm going to share this booking page with you. And okay, now let me present. All right. Now, can you see the screen? Let me know if you can see it. So this is the page. This is the booking page. And this is where you sign up for the VIP list, because you'll get a personal invite at the end of the week. Get on the VIP list. It's back for 2025. This is the Good Life and Some Soul. Just some information on here. Talks about uplift. It has everything that I talked about here. This is going to be an unforgettable experience. Now, these are testimonials from the 2023 trip. So
there's so much history as African Americans that we do not know. We've never been shared or taught about in our history as an African American. And so for me to come to France and be immersed into the culture and learn about what the impact has been for people in
sorry about that. It's buffering.
France, or what the impact, like to hear.
I will make sure to share this with you, because the internet is like slow right now.
That Claude McKay lived in Marseille.
let me just put the link there because it just does not want to cooperate here. Let me open it up in YouTube. That's what I'll do. Hang on 1 second. Let me share it from, can you hear it? Okay, you can't hear it, so let me, I put a link in the
It's been
chat.
very moving to hear the different stories, the experience.
So let me try to share it directly from YouTube. Maybe it'll do better than it's doing right now. You can see, but you can't hear. Yeah, it is buffering. Let us see. I did put a link in the chat for you. And if you go to the page, you can actually see it. So let's try to do that again.
There's so much history as
Okay, so it's not going to do it. I did put the link there for you because my internet is just iffy. So
African Americans that we do not know.
Okay, so it's buffering. It's buffering. Today's just not the day to try to share a video. It's just so sorry about that.
In our history as an
So if you go to the page, the video is embedded on the page. So you can click on the video and you can watch what clients said on the trip when they went there in 2023. It went like hotcakes. So I put a link there. It's in the chat. You'll see the YouTube video link as well as the VIP list page. So make sure if you're interested in this trip to sign up for that VIP list so that as soon as I nail down those couple of details about the single supplement and the price for triples, because there are a couple cabins where you can have 3 people in a cabin, and but it's going to be a pull-out couch. You can have 2 beds and a pull-out couch, like a futon. So I have to nail down which cabins those are, which ones are available, and what the prices would be for that, just in case someone was interested in that, as well as the single supplement this time. But does anyone have any questions at all about what I talked about? Any questions? The internet's just not going to be cooperative for me to share that video today. So does anyone have any questions or any comments or anything? Is anyone interested in this fabulous trip? Like I said, I'm going to be on 2024. A couple of people who are on the video, they're going to online here, they're going to be with us as well, but it's because there's so much demand for it that they offered it again in 2025 and they will offer it again in 2026. So this is the Soulful Epicurean experience in France, sailing the Rhone River, 3 nights in Paris, exploring Paris with Black history and heritage culture tours, and in Marseille as well. And it's just a fabulous experience. And if you look at the page, my images, my pictures that I took in 2021 are there. Of course, it's not the Black history aspect of it, but I went and because the owner of the company, one of the owner of the companies was on the cruise, and she had a meeting with us, and the African American travel advisor community were like, please, you could do something for us here in France, because we know you're doing Jewish heritage. We know you do Hispanic heritage. Of course, Portugal, they have Portugal tours. So there was also a Portugal tour in Lisbon. I'll let you know if there are any cancellations. I definitely will. but not much about African Americans. And so we were like, listen, number one, put us in your imaging. That'll draw us. So they did. They said, okay, the first time, how about if we take your pictures? So that started the whole thing, and they've really gone out of their way to create an extraordinary experience for African Americans or people of color. Really, it's really for anyone, but just the idea that they're emphasizing the contributions of Black people. And we go all the way to France to have something like that. It's just one of those extraordinary experiences. So we get an opportunity to see why the Claude McKays and James Baldwin and Josephine Baker and James Europe, they went to France. So they went there for a reason, so that they could be free to express themselves. So I know there's a lot going on right now with France and the Sahel region of Africa, with them basically saying no more neo-colonization. There's a lot going on there. But as for us African Americans, I mean, I'm glad for them, but as far as African Americans, we, like I said before, we have been in every single war the United States of America has had from colonial times. We have been with Lewis and Clark. The guides, one of the guides was a Black guy for Lewis and Clark when they wanted to go from coast to coast. And expand the United States. A Black guide was with the first explorer who went to the North Pole, but we don't hear these stories. So it's up to us to learn, right, Robert? So Robert is a African American studies teacher. So he's up on this stuff, but I mean, it's up to us to learn, and then we pass this information along to our kids because they need to know. So my parents had to do it for us, my sister and I, when we were growing up, because in the 60s and 70s, that was unheard of, But now the opportunity is there, but it's being taken out of the school. So we have to go back to what we did before. All right. Okay. Joyce, Matthew Henson. Matthew Henson. Who's Matthew Henson? I know you said that for a reason. Matthew Henson. He was one of Sally's brothers. I know there was James. There was another one. There were a number of them. And yeah, so I definitely will let you know, Joyce, if there are any cancellations in 2024. But you can get the jump on 2025, because before you know it, 2025 will be here. So if you're interested in this cruise, click the link, sign up for the VIP list, and get a river cruise consultation. So let me put the link to the river cruise consultation in there, just in case you have some questions about it before then. So let's see. Schedule your free consultation. Let me put the link to that in here. Oh, the explorer. Yeah, his name was Matthew Perry. Yeah, that's what she's saying, Matthew Perry. But we don't hear about those things. So it's up to us to learn and pass the information along. So unless anybody has any questions or comments, yes, you can watch and share this video because it's on StreamYard, right? So you should have gotten, if you signed up, you should have gotten a link and you'll get the replay. So even if you didn't, you can still sign up for it. So I'll make sure that I share that information, because you'll get an email. I'll send everybody else out an email, and I'm going to go over this week. I'm going to have another session on actually the excursions and all of the experiences that we'll actually have. We were everywhere was my point. Yes, Joyce. Yes, we were everywhere, and we still are. So yes, Geraldine, you can watch this video again. If you sign up on StreamYard, you'll get the replay. You can watch it on demand. So if you have any more questions or comments, just let me know. And anything else you want to ask? Questions about this trip? This is a luxury experience. It's one of those greatest of all trips. I love these kinds of trips, because you work your entire life, and then you're like, I finally can do something. I'm going to do it. After the pandemic, I'm like, I'm not waiting on anyone else. So I'm going to do it while I can do it. So this is Priscilla with Scylla Travel. So glad that you joined me this evening. And I'm going to do one more round. Any questions or comments on YouTube? Because I'm streaming on YouTube. Let's see. You're welcome, Geraldine. Let's see. Anybody on LinkedIn? I think the stream is working on LinkedIn. I'm not sure because I had these issues. But let me know if you've got any comments or any questions at all before I sign off. So this is Priscilla with Scylla Travel, hoping that you have a great rest of your day, morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever it is that you watch this video, and from wherever you watch it, if you share it with your friends and family. Thanks for watching. And remember, as always, live the dream. Bye-bye.